Welcome to Tenacity with Sonia C, the podcast where entrepreneurs, founders, and ambitious professionals come to learn from those who have walked the path, navigating challenges and achieving success. Whether it's thriving in business, pivoting, scaling for growth, fundraising, or finding work-life balance, dealing with loneliness, adversity, or overcoming personal struggles. Our guests share the insights and strategies that have empowered them to level up. I'm your host, Sonia, and let's get started. My guest today is Kerry Tepedino. Kerry is an acclaimed author, transformational leader, and the visionary founder of the One Thought Away project. Kerry's journey is one of remarkable transformation, from battling with low self-esteem and an eating disorder to mastering her mindset and founding a global movement that empowers others to embrace their full potential. Today, we'll explore the power of emotional intelligence, the importance of self-love, and the life-changing impact of mindset mastery. Kerry is here not only to share her inspiring story, but also provide actionable insights on how you too can overcome challenges and lead a life filled with joy and purpose. Hi, Kerry. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me, Sonia.
So let's start. You described a pivotal moment where you decided to change your life's direction. Could you share more about what specific thought or realization sparked your transformation?
Yeah, so I've had a few defining moments that really were catalysts for me to say, okay, am I still going to have that same thought, same emotion, take that same action, or I'm going to do something different? But one of the most pivotal moments was over 20 years ago. So I've been an entrepreneur for 21 plus years. And before that, I didn't have great emotional mastery or emotional regulation skills. You know, I was super anxious and stressed out. I worked in the corporate world and I had a big project that was due at work the next day. And I was stressed. What if it's not good enough? What if I'm not good enough? What are my peers going to think? What's my boss going to think? And I remember driving home from the office the night before the project was due, the presentation. And I was telling myself, don't stop at this store, Kerry. Don't stop at this store, Kerry. Because the way that I dealt with stress and anxiety was to check out, escape, and numb out with food and eating. Some of our friends here might be alcohol, might be smoking, might be overworking, social media. Social media wasn't really a thing back then, but for me, it was food and eating. And so where did I find myself? When I got into my neighborhood, of course, I found myself at the store. And as I'm going up and down the aisles, filling my cart with all my comfort food, saying, this time it's going to be different. I'm not going to eat this food right away. It's going to last me, 2 weeks like any quote unquote normal person. And by the time I got home, I find the peanut butter jar, unscrew that blue lid, peel back that silver foil. I'm just going to take one bite. But one becomes two, two becomes three. And eventually that spoon hits the bottom of the jar. The heart breaks because I broke trust in myself once again. Yeah. Right. So at the time, I was also bulimic. So I took that walk down the hallway to the bathroom, try to purge it out. Never worked, especially with something like peanut butter. And but that night it was different. That night, my heart was racing and I knew enough about health to know that my electrolytes were imbalanced, which means my cardiovascular system was actually getting challenged at that point. And one of my dear friends from college, her mom had died of an eating disorder because her organs failed. So I had like this direct personal experience that night. It was just like, it finally hit me like, Kerry, like you have a choice. Like you either stay here crying on this cold white tile bathroom floor, wondering why nothing works out or life is hard or, the stresses of it all, or you make a different decision. You have a different thought and you pick yourself up, you heal, you figure this out, and you get your life back on track. And honestly, Sonia, in hindsight, like it was a God moment for me. In hindsight, I don't even know how I found the strength to have the different thought. But thank God, literally, I did. And that sent me on a really incredible journey around the world. I studied with monks. I studied deep meditation, Ayurveda under an Ayurvedic doctor in India. I really started to change my life. I started to change how I thought. I started to change from the inside out. My thinking, my relationship with my emotions, and I was able to break the addiction. Again, mine was about food, but there's many, many addictions. So for our friends who are listening, what's your addiction? Where do you check out, escape, and numb out? Because maybe you're stressed about your new business or scaling your business. And I was able to break my addiction, which then gave me a deep responsibility. I felt a deep responsibility to then go help other women, because I serve women, help other women break, get off their bathroom floors and turn their lives around, which is how this business birthed itself. I always
Mhm.
say my business actually birthed itself out of necessity because it was exactly what I needed, but I couldn't find it when I really needed it. And that
Wow.
was over 21 years ago, or about 21 years ago.
Wow, good for you. That's commendable. So So it's interesting that like something drastic had to happen for you to come to the realization something's wrong with my body or something's wrong with me mentally. And I can relate. Like I didn't go through the same thing as you, but I feel like something had dramatic had to happen in my life, like getting breast cancer, to
Mm-hmm.
realize that I wasn't in a good place in my life and I needed to make changes and go through my own journey. But my question to you is that what it takes for someone to realize that there is something wrong with their nervous system, with their, just themselves? Well, what does it take to come to that realization besides something physically being wrong with you or you getting sick?
Yeah, with a body breakdown.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think it has to get to that level, but I think it's human nature for us to allow it to get to that level because we're living in our comfort zones,
Mm,
right? Which is the world that we know, the routines that we know, the stress levels that we know, and we've adapted, and those have become or do become our baselines.
mhm.
And so, it's like somebody who has chronic fatigue syndrome. Like you don't really understand how tired you really are because the fatigue has become your baseline until you actually heal and you start to experience yourself as an energetic being. And
Mm,
then you look back in hindsight and you go, oh my gosh, like how was I even operating? Right?
Yeah.
How was I even getting my business? How was I getting out of bed to even work my business? Right. So do I think it has to come to that level or that bathroom floor moment? I don't think it has to. I think conversations like this can really um
Spark.
interrupt. Yeah, it can interrupt the old patterns. It can interrupt having to go to the bathroom floor moment. So that, I mean, even this episode could be a huge defining moment for our friends who are listening so that
Mhm.
they don't go all the way down to the bathroom floor and they course correct starting with where they're at. Do I think most humans let themselves? I think a lot of people let themselves get to that darkest chapter and they feel what it feels like to be at rock bottom, and that becomes the turning point. But it doesn't have to. If
Mm.
you're surrounded by the right mentors and the right community and you have the right processes and strategies in the right order, then why not course correct before it ends up in a bathroom floor moment?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the areas that I wanted to talk to you is about emotional intelligence because I think I hear about it all the time, but I don't think people actually understand what it is. So before I get to questions about emotional intelligence, can you describe to our listeners who don't really quite understand it, have heard about it, what is emotional intelligence?
Absolutely. So we teach it in two different ways. We teach emotional intelligence as more the broader stroke of it, like the umbrella topic, the bigger topic.
Mhm.
And then we teach emotional mastery. So we'll start with emotional intelligence. So this is the way we teach it. It could be different in other communities. But the emotional intelligence component is really about having that broader understanding around what are emotions in general. Like emotions are energy, right? And like as Albert Einstein taught us, everything is energy. And so energy can never be destroyed. It gets transmuted. It shifts and changes into something else. So if you know that stress and anxiety and worry are energy, then it's like, okay, that's data. That the emotional intelligence is having the data and the understanding around what are emotions,
Mm.
and emotions are energy, and then and how emotions can impact us. Now, what we teach is then there's this next phase of emotions, which is emotional mastery. And the way we teach it is emotional mastery is your personal relationship with your emotions. So,
Mm.
emotional intelligence is this overall bigger understanding of what are emotions. And then the emotional mastery piece is your personal relationship with your emotions and understanding, like, getting yourself to the point, like what we do with our clients is we get them to the point where they have a skill set and a tool set and an understanding around emotions, so that when the big emotions come up,
Mm.
which a big emotion for one person is relevant, it might not be a big emotion for the next person, but when that emotion comes up, they know they can handle it, and it doesn't have to take them off kilter or out of their game.
Right.
And they can, oh my gosh, they can save themselves so much worry, anxiety, heartache, money, time, all the things,
Yeah.
because they know how to be in relationship with their emotions.
So, what constitutes a lack of emotional intelligence, and how do you see this impacting individuals' personal and professional lives?
You know what? I think a lot of people have never been taught about emotional intelligence. And I know that it's become more of a common topic, like, I don't know, the past 10 years or so. But really, I mean, it's not being taught in the school systems, really. And honestly, I wish it was being taught. I have three very young children, and one just started fourth grade yesterday, or is in fourth grade this year. And I have two 3-year-old twins who just started pre-K, and I would love to see this social, emotional intelligence mindset work being taught in the school systems, because it is what helps us thrive,
Mm.
right? And we're not here to just survive. We are here with an opportunity to thrive. And a lot of people simply are not taught skills. They're not taught um, basics around what is emotional intelligence, right? And so it's kind of like when you become a parent or when you become a business owner. Let's talk about that, because I know we have a lot of business owners here in this community. A lot of the times you're not actually taught exactly what to do to get that business running, to get it off the ground. You're not taught all the specifics of it, and you're kind of thrown into it, just like we're thrown into parenting or we're thrown into relationships. We're not always given a guidebook, like a roadmap, right? And it's kind of the same thing with your emotions. Like, a lot of parents haven't taught their children, a lot of teachers, a lot of school systems, at least the districts here, aren't necessarily going into detail around what are my emotions and how can I be in relationship with them in a healthy way, so that so I know how to manage stress.
Mm-hmm.
And stress, it's a global thing. I mean, it's there. We are impacted by what's happening politically, economically. War in certain parts of our world is happening. Like, there's stress. There's a lot of opportunity to get anxious and worried about high pressure seasons and uncertain times in the world that we live in. And because we all have a phone now, most of us have a smartphone, we're getting just bombarded with so much data.
Yeah.
And so all the time. And so even if there's a war happening on the other side of the world, we can feel the stress levels of that as if it's happening in our neighborhood, and which can be really detrimental to our health, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and financially, and with your businesses and career. It can be detrimental for us if we don't have a skill set around our emotions.
So, for our listeners who have heard the word emotional intelligence and still can't really grasp what it means or what it is, I just want to use an example. So, you're the expert, not me. So, let's just say I drove to work this morning. I decided to drive, and maybe I woke up in a bad mood on the wrong side of the bed, and I'm driving, and all of a sudden I find myself having road rage, and I honked at like six different people, and then I get to work, and I'm like, I'm in a bad mood today, right? How can I deal with that with emotional intelligence?
Great question. And so let's work with some basics so our friends can walk away with some tangible tools.
Yeah.
And also knowing that whatever happened for you during traffic as you drive to school this morning might be a 8 or a 9 on the stress scale for you, but it might be a 1 to somebody else,
Mhm.
right? So not getting into the comparison game or the judgment game or
But but
judging ourselves.
but that process like rattled me up. Like it made me stressed, right? Just going
Right.
through that.
Right. So a very simple tool that all of our friends can use here, just, coming away from this conversation, is connect back into your breath. And, most of us have heard about breath work, and some of us have tried it or tried it consistently, right? Even if you've heard about it, maybe you haven't tried it. But your breath is a tool that you can absolutely access and have access to at any time, whether you're skiing on top of a mountain, you're surfing on a wave, or you're in the middle of a traffic jam on the freeway in LA, right? Like you have access to that.
Mm.
And so if you're behind the wheel driving a car, okay, well, you don't need to close your eyes, but you can still take some deep breaths. Your deep breathing can help stabilize and ground, can help calm your central nervous system. And one of the invitations that I give around breath work is a little different than what most communities give, is that, maybe like you take an inhale in through the nose and then exhale out through the mouth, and you make it audible, like audibly. You could hear your breath
Mm.
exiting your mouth. And then what I invite people to do is to tap into that place inside of you, which is stillness. And even if there's chaos happening around you, even if there's, a traffic jam on the freeway or a crash right in front of you, or even if you're at a concert and you're in the middle of a crowd, you still have the ability to tap into this stillness that is within you, although you might not have connected to it for a very long time because you live in a mindset or a world that's full of noise and chaos,
Mm.
right? And so gaining a skill set to really exhale, tap into even like that space between the breaths,
Mm.
right? Like there's a stillness there between the breaths. And for me, I'm very faith based. I believe in God, I believe in Jesus. And so for me, it's also like, it's like a lifeline for my soul. It's a lifeline to the divine. It's a lifeline to something bigger than me, to go quiet, to ground myself. And the breath is a beautiful tool for that, to go quiet within myself and connect into something quiet within myself that helps me ground into who I am as a soul, not just a person doing a lot of busy things on this planet, but who am I as a soul having an experience here on this planet? And through that place, what I do is I connect deeper to the divine. I connect deeper to something bigger than me, which for me helps me presence myself because it lets me release the need to know all the answers and to have control of every situation. Okay, there's a divine plan on my life. I can trust this plan. I get to stay in inspired action with the vision I have for my business, my life, my audience, my community, whatever it is. And I can exhale here, become present, and trust that there's something bigger going on, and realize that I can be I can be in relationship to my emotions in a different way. And when you ground yourself through that, then like Albert Einstein says, the energy has space to shift. And
Mhm.
so that energy of stress, that energy of anxiety, that energy of worry now has a different opening to, oh, okay, I'm here in this traffic jam. I'm just going to exhale here. And I'm going to take an extra moment to just ask myself, what am I grateful for right now?
Mm.
What am I looking forward to in my day today?
Oh wow.
Right? To shift the mindset.
I love that. That's fantastic. I always thought there was like so much more to it. Like you're gonna have to go and do all these things, but I think that's a really good like first step, and I think that's achievable. Anybody can do that.
Yes, beautiful. It's achievable for anybody. That's a great point to make, Sonia. So it's accessible, it's simple, it's not always easy, but
Yeah.
it can be simple.
So just on that, I don't want to go into it too much, but like I keep hearing things about breath work and breath work. So you're saying inhale in through the nose, out through the mouth, and make sure that you can hear the noise. It's just that simple.
It could be that simple, and there's different techniques around breathing. There's something called box breathing where you count into a certain amount, like 4 in, you hold it for 4, you exhale for 4. There's different types of techniques with breathing, but the most important thing to do is find what works for you. For me, a deep inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, it grounds me. Like, and even hearing my breath exhale, and just, you can even inhale in, okay, inhaling in what I need right now, trust, faith, peace, calm,
Mhm.
and exhale out what you don't, stress, anxiety, worry. So there can be an inner conversation that's happening with, if that's what works for our friends here who are listening.
Yeah.
Figure out what works for you. And there can be an inner conversation that's happening that also helps decrease the stress levels.
So is it in fact when you're doing the breathing and you're grounding yourself, is it actually having an effect on your nervous system?
Absolutely. Absolutely, it is. Yeah. hmm
Okay, so
You're oxygenating your whole body,
okay.
but also what you're doing is so as you do this more consistently and it becomes a practice, then what also happens is the mind starts to associate, oh, we're decompressing now. Oh, we're relaxing now. Oh, we're going to be okay. Right. So it can trigger a response in the brain where, as you do this work and as we work with women, we help them reprogram. It's neuro linguistic programming. We help them reprogram how their brain operates and the talk tracks that are happening in the brain. We help them reprogram that because then, like, for example, you take a few deep breaths. It's already an association that your brain has. Oh, it's time to relax, chill out. Nothing's wrong here. And then it's like a domino effect. It can have a domino effect with your body, even on a chemical level. Okay, now it's time to relax. Okay, everything's okay. Okay, I don't have to worry in this moment. Right. So it helps also stimulate a different response within the brain.
Love it. Okay. Could you explain the concept of mindset mastery as you teach it, and why is it critical for personal transformation?
Yeah. So, as the international bestseller of the book One Thought Away, which is on Amazon, it's very easy to find. This is like a foundational piece of pretty much every conversation we have in regards to transformation is leveraging your brain as one of your greatest tools that you have access to. The breath is great. The brain, I would say, is even better, right? And training yourself to be in relationship with your brain and how you use your brain to realize you are always one thought away from having the experience you want to have or not. And those last two words, or not, are super, super important because unless we realize, oh my gosh, if I don't focus my brain and start to use my brain in a way that's going to work for me, my mindset in a way that's going to work for me, if it's not working for me, it's probably going to start working against me. Right. So we want to train your brain to work for you by design and not by default against you. And so the mind is so important. Research now says it used to be 60,000, but now what I've heard is that your brain is thinking 80,000 thoughts a day. And for most people, 60 to 70,000 of those thoughts are often more on the pessimistic side. The glass is half empty.
Yeah.
And so just imagine, my gosh, if you're getting pummeled with 60,000 negative thoughts a day on an unconscious level, and on a very in a routine way where you don't realize it because it's just how you've trained your brain to work, then just imagine how that's impacting your environment, how that's impacting your bank account, how that's impacting everything,
Mhm.
everything, your businesses, whether your business takes off or not. And so, by learning the mindset mastery skill set, which means learning how to use your mind in a way where it's working for you and not against you. So, learning to really harness the power of your thinking. You're one thought away from having your dream life or not. You're one thought away from having your dream business or not. And what research shows is that whatever we believe cognitively, whatever we believe, we must prove ourselves right. So for example, if you believe that having a business is really hard, if you believe being an entrepreneur is really hard, if you believe that nothing's going to work out for you in your business, then even as you're sleeping, your brain is working to make that possibility come true, because
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't realize your brain isn't trained to decipher for itself between the negative and the positive. So if you're constantly saying it's hard, it's hard, it's hard, then all your brain is hearing, like, as a fact, is it's very hard, right? It's not deciphering on its own. So as you're sleeping, it's working to prove yourself right.
So
So
it's working for you, not against you, technically.
right, technically. but it's one reason why we get to be super, super clear on what is the roadmap, what is the vision that you want to give your brain to work on even as you're sleeping. What is the vision that you want to give it for your life, for your bank account, for your business, right? For your relationships. What is that? What is that?
I find it fascinating that, I hear all these studies on the brain and everyone says like we don't utilize our full potential of the brain, and the brain, there's still so much that needs to be done. But yet we have this tool that we can control and we don't know how to control it half the time, because a lot of us are just walking around with whatever conditioning we had as children, and we don't even know how
Yes.
to reprogram our brains, right? So we're just like we're just living in that circle, whether it's vicious, whether it's gray, we're just doing it over and over again because at a young age, our brains were, programmed to think this way and feel this way. And a lot of people don't know that they have the power to change that programming that they were raised with, or had a trauma that caused something, right? So I always find that really fascinating. And like, how hard is it really to start shifting and reprogramming your brain?
Yeah. It's as hard as we make it.
Okay. Good
And
assessment.
yeah, and so it's hard on your own. Let me say that.
Yeah.
It can be really hard on your own, because especially if that's how you've been trained is or let's say you're young, before you're 8 years old, you've been exposed to trauma, or maybe you experienced trauma yourself. But so or maybe authority figures are have been traumatized themselves, and then they're passing it down generation to generation.
Mm.
Well, that's just what you know,
Yeah.
right? And so normally what we do is we continue to hang around with people who think the way we think. And that just becomes the world that we understand is the world. That's how the world operates. And so if you're just left to your own demise, and you started off with a negative experience or negative belief system about yourself and what's possible for you in the world, it's very hard to
Yeah.
change that on your own, because you don't know anything different to compare it to. And so it's one reason, like, the backbone of every single program that we do, the backbone for us is community, and surrounding yourself with other people who are also forward focused, who are in conversations like this day in and day out, is really, really critical, so that you have something different being taught to you and then reflected back to you.
Yeah.
And there was a study in Harvard did it. So it was probably like 10 years ago. And I remember it was the holiday season, and I was visiting my mom up in Northern California, and I was sitting on one of her high bar stools at the island in our kitchen. And she comes in, and she's like, comes in with a magazine. She's all excited. She's like, "Oh my gosh, Kerry, look, this is what you've been saying for so long." And I'm like, "What?" And she was reading the magazine, The Economist. And there was a bit in there, an article in there that was talking about a study done by Harvard. And it was an online program that was based on health. And,
Oh,
and one, health. And one of the things but it doesn't matter if it was health or business or whatever it is, that's just what the topic was. But this relates to this conversation around business as well. And so one of the things that they were measuring was, they titled it friends. It doesn't mean that those people went into the study with their friends, but when they got into the study, they created and they engaged and created um, like friendships or connections with the other people in the program. So, what the study showed was the people who made friends or did the transformative work with friends were the ones who actually hit their goals. And then, once the study was complete, they were the ones who actually sustained their results. And so, and there's a lot of research on that, right? And so, um, it is difficult to change and transform on your own because we don't know what we don't know,
Yeah.
right? And so it's really, really important. Like I will always have mentors. My mentors always have mentors because around somebody who also might not be so emotionally charged to whatever it is that you're going through so that they can come in with fresh eyes and fresh perspective on whatever our businesses or our personal lives is really important, and it saves us I believe it saves a ton of time, saves a lot of money, and it saves a lot of heartache to just surround yourself with mentors who are at least 2 steps ahead of you, that have a community in place for structure, and they have processes and strategies in place that are proven in that community. And my gosh, it just streamlines the process so much to get from where you are to where you want to be.
Love it. Before we wrap up, just a couple more questions. So, what is self love and why don't people have it?
Wow, that's a big question. um, my definition of self love is a relationship with oneself where you truly honor and respect yourself,
Yeah.
and you intentionally are living a lifestyle, making choices in a way that is healthy for you physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Doesn't mean you're doing it perfectly, and when you don't do it perfectly, when you fall off track, you course correct as soon as possible. Like I see that as self-love. Why don't people have it? Well, I think, like, for me personally, when I didn't have a lot of self-love, it was because I wasn't in conversations around it. I wasn't taught about self-love as a kid. I wasn't in active conversations around it. And so it just wasn't something that I had a good knowledge base on. I think definitely the topic is spoken about now more
Yeah.
than it was when I was a kid. I'm in my 50s, so I feel like it's definitely like more of a conversation now. But you know, it doesn't always just come automatically. Like there are a lot of people that would really benefit from slowing down and really diving into the topic of self love and getting curious and interested in regards to their relationship to themselves, because our relationship to ourselves is the most important relationship that's out there, right? We are the only ones we can guarantee will be with ourselves to that last breath. The only one. No matter if somebody says, I will always be there for you, we are the only ones that we can guarantee, even if other people have the best intentions. And so this is the most important relationship.
I find that like everyone's talking about self love nowadays, but with the world we live in, with social media, to me, I see self love as having a relationship with myself. And I've gone through this journey and I'm not perfect at it, but I'm trying. So it's about like having a relationship with myself because it's something that I never knew growing up. I grew up in an environment where I wasn't the priority. I had to take care of adults almost. And
Mm,
growing up, I sort of went into that. But self love for me is being aware of myself and being able to spend time with myself without other people around and being able to even like have a conversation with myself and building boundaries with other people, but really being able to spend time on my own because I went from living at home with my parents to getting married and going and living with my then husband and not really ever being alone.
yeah.
And when I hear people talk about self-love, people sort of roll their eyes and are like, "Oh yeah, here we go, like self-love." Like, but I don't really think that people understand how
Mm,
important it is to like spend that time on your own and I remember someone asked me once, like, what's your favorite food? Like right after my divorce. And I was like, I don't know. I don't have a favorite food. I just ate what he liked. And I think that's part
Mm.
of self love. Am I correct? Like knowing who you are.
Well, absolutely. I mean, boundaries for sure is definitely a component of
Also
self-love. And
hard
I
enough.
it can be, yes, depending on how you were raised, for
Right.
sure. And if you were taught skills around that, and if there was judgment around boundaries. And so, one of the things that I teach my clients is boundaries are actually very godly.
Mm,
Boundaries take care of you and they take care of the other person.
right.
And so that's that's mindset work right there, and that's a shift in perspective. But I think when somebody has gained self love, then spending time with themselves and knowing and understanding themselves, whether it's something around like favorite food to something as deep as like, who am I really? And who do I want to be as a person I respect in this world?
Mm.
And what do I want my life to look like? Right. So there's a whole spectrum of conversations and interactions we can have with ourselves that will deepen into the knowing of self.
In your experience, how does nurturing self love impact one's relationships, career, and overall life?
Oh my goodness, in every way. So here's why. So in our lives, there's a lot of different buckets, right? We have our bucket that we've titled family, a bucket that we've titled friends, a bucket that we've titled finances and business and health. And like we have all these buckets. But the common denominator for every single bucket in our life is ourself,
Mm,
right? We are the common denominator. And so when we focus in on elevating ourselves, when we focus in on being the happiest and healthiest version of ourselves possible, then organically and naturally, all those other buckets in our lives, our finances, our relationships, our everything else in our lives gets to organically elevate because we're the common denominator, right? So if we are toxic, if we're um, not healthy, if we're always stressed and worried and all the things, as we know, that also impacts every single bucket in your life. And so, again, coming back to how important and it's an act of self love for ourselves to take care of ourselves, but it's also an act of love for those that are in our lives because when we take care of ourselves, we actually have more to give them, not less. When we don't take care of ourselves, when we put everybody else first, when we're the victim or the martyr or whatever it is, however you've been trained to believe that is, like, oh, but I'm just really generous. Okay, that's beautiful. You can be generous, but take care of yourself first so that you don't burn out and get exhausted because then you have nothing to give your children or your grandchildren or your clients or your employees or your employer. You have nothing to give anybody else anyways,
right.
right? And so we are the common denominator for every single aspect of our lives. And so it's why I believe like we're also our greatest return on investment. When we invest in becoming our healthiest, happiest self ever, and healthy, I'm not like a lot of people when I say healthy, they think physical health, but it's way more than that. It's mental health, emotional health, physical health for sure, but it's also spiritual health. Like when we become the healthiest version of ourselves on all levels, that's when we actually can really become a lighthouse in the world through our businesses, through our um, volunteer work, through our parenting, whatever it is. We can become a brighter lighthouse in the world for others.
I love it. So the ultimate goal is self love,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, I love that.
yeah.
Carrie, this was such a fascinating conversation. Time just flew by. I'm having such a good time. Thank you, Carrie. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your journey with us.
Well, thank you for having me, Sonia. I know you don't take it lightly who you put in front of your audience and your listeners, and you're very selective and you're a mama bear to them. So I am honored to be here.
Thank you. I want to thank Carrie for joining me today. It's been incredibly enlightening to hear your insights and stories on how we can all harness the power of our thoughts to transform our lives. To our listeners, we hope you found this conversation as inspiring as we did. Remember, every journey begins with a single thought. And as Carrie beautifully illustrated today, you are just one thought away from a completely different life. We encourage you to reflect on what you've heard today and take that first step towards your own transformation. And that's a wrap. To our listeners, thank you for joining me on this journey of learning, growth, and inspiration. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform and connect with our community on social media. I'd love to hear your feedback, so leave a review and let me know what topics you'd want to explore in future episodes. Remember, the future belongs to those who embrace challenges, adapt with tenacity, and keep pushing forward. Keep growing, keep pivoting, and most importantly, stay tenacious in your pursuits. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to bringing you more insightful conversations in our upcoming episodes. This is Sonia signing off, but as always, keep chasing your dreams with tenacity.